Next, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker. He is an internationalist, executive facilitator, author, and keynote speaker. An award-winning educator, he received the 2011 Champions Award for Innovative Teaching. He's currently serving as the Academic Director of Executive Development, Singapore Management University. His courses, books, and case studies have been featured in the New York Times, MIT's Technology Review, Communication World Magazine, Channel News Asia, and the Business Communication Quarterly. It was through an article in the New York Times that we found our speaker. Now it is our great pleasure to invite Dr. Michael Netzley for the keynote speech.
It's a pleasure to be here. And for years when I've been delivering my undergraduate courses at SMU, I've always told my students that as you get ready to deliver your final presentation, you always want to speak after somebody who is an accomplished presenter. The research has shown that, in fact, the people who follow these accomplished presenters, on average, earn higher grades in the class. So it is certainly my pleasure to be following you today, Professor Lee, and a thank you to our distinguished guests and everybody for being here. In a way, I feel like a little bit of an accidental tourist being here. Back in 2006, I actually moved to SMU in 2002 to help build the university. But in 2006, I met a colleague who invited me to listen to his podcast. And my response was, "Your pod what?" I had no idea what this was. But one thing leads to another. And I hosted PodCamp at Singapore Management University, which was an unconference, very much like this. So an event, a value set very dear to my heart. Went on to host two Pecha Kucha presentation events, which are also unconferences, and launched a course in digital media. And the story that I'm going to share today is very much going to build upon the lessons that I've learned in this digital media class. Going all the way back to 2004 as a junior faculty member. And I say junior not because of the number of years, but frankly because I was naive enough to say yes enthusiastically to my dean, who asked me to create a teaching excellence initiative for the new university. So I did that, and all of this has come together and allowed me to create this course in digital media. And what have I learned from that? Three lessons that I think might be useful for us today. Now, as an umbrella to capture those lessons, I'd like to begin with this story from DARPA research. Now, DARPA does defense research, but what they did, and they've been particularly concerned about decentralized networks since the events of September 11th. They launched this large-scale event. They put 10 of these balloons around continental USA. Now, that's a little bit bigger than Singapore. And the task was, as a team, how quickly could you submit the correct coordinates for all 10 of these balloons? Now, in my interactive style, I'm going to ask for one person from each section to shout out an answer. Over here, how long do you think it took for the winning team to identify the location of all 10 balloons? What would your best guess be? Shout one out. Don't be shy. Because I don't know how to lecture. Come on. Come on, give me a number.
24 hours.
24 hours? All right, in the middle, what would you guess?
6 hours.
6 hours. So 24/6 in over here? 1 hour. Under 1 hour. All right. Survey says, drum roll, da, 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 fewer than 9 hours. Now again, if we think about the geographic space that is involved in this, in finding a little red balloon, this is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So how did the winning team do it? First of all, they're from MIT. Okay. Come on. Leave it up to the engineers and scientists to figure this out. And they did what all professors would love for their students to do. They applied a theory that they learned in class. Go figure. Now, this theory said, look, if you go out to the crowd and you give to an individual money for giving you a correct coordinate, they're going to have greater incentive to do so. So the person who actually gave the correct coordinates got $2,000. The person who introduced the winning team to the person who gave them the correct coordinates got $1,000. The person who invited the person who invited the person giving the correct coordinates, so a friend's friend's friend, $500, and right on down the line. And of course, they called their colleagues at the local radio station and said, we're in this competition. Can you announce it in the PSA segment of your radio show? They got the news out there through both new and traditional media. And lo and behold, it took them fewer than 9 hours. Now, to me, that is an absolutely amazing number. And it begins to capture the three ideas that I would like to talk about. Now, first of all, if we think about the problem solving here, these folks went beyond their dormitory walls, they went beyond the boundaries of MIT, and they took this event onto a social network. Twitter, Facebook, right on down the line. What happens as we start thinking about the possibilities of education, or in my case, higher education, when we move beyond the boundaries of our particular institution? Can we improve our effectiveness? In classic business school fashion, I would ask, can we improve our return on investment by using these resources? Second of all, complete strangers were willing to share, and they were willing to share a little nugget. Yeah, hey, I passed one of those balloons when I was walking home. Look at such and such park in Boston, and you'll find one of them. Now, of course, Google Maps, which has a live camera, will give you that right away. So how, again, can we look to strangers for these little nuggets that can dramatically improve our objective in the classroom and with given lessons? And third of all, while we cannot offer our students a cash money prize, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Well, actually, maybe not when I think about the motivation here. What other motivations can we tap into to get them onto these networks, talking with strangers, and looking for those little nuggets that have brought more resources into our classroom, into our assignments and experience, and done so at very low cost? How can we tap into these sorts of motivations? So that'll lead then to the first challenge. And going to my course on digital media, the specific assignment that I had students working on was a wiki assignment. When we started in 2006, there was no information at all available in a single location about digital media across Southeast Asia. So I said, hey, I think this is something that business people would like to know, and when my students are going to apply for a job, they can say to the marketing representative, hey, look at what we've dug up. Couldn't you use this for your customers in these different markets? So we created this wiki called Digital Media Across Asia. This was going to be amazing. We were going to have the conversation. We were going to co-create. We were going to tap into people from around the region. Well, you can probably tell from my tone of voice it didn't go quite as planned. And I wrote up some of that experience in this article last year, Social Networks and the Desire to Save Face. The assignment was go out meet strangers online, ask a few questions, do some interviews, and share your insights. Really simple, right? As an American, this made perfect sense. In America. In Singapore, what we got was, certainly the value structure here. Let's have the conversation, let's co-create. But in that New York Times article, what the students said was, it's dangerous. It's actually a bad thing because I can go in and I can change what somebody else has written. This shocked me. Absolutely shocked me. Part of the way I put myself through my 4-year bachelor's degree was through public speaking, student-to-student coaching. Why wouldn't you want to help your classmates? I couldn't understand this, but of course, saving face is really ultimately what this came down to. A couple of things that I learned right away. Number one, psychological safety. Now, not sure if you use that particular term in the educational literature, very big in organizational behavior literature. And when I ask students to go out and talk on an open network to strangers about something that they had no expertise about, what I didn't realize was I was violating the principle of psychological safety. This was something that made them very, very uncomfortable. Now, later on, an interim step helped. I was able to create a private chat account. Honestly, I can't even remember the name of what that old social network was. But I also created a private blog, and we could practice for 2 or 3 weeks before going out on the open network. That helped a little bit. But this issue of psychological safety for students in an open network, very, very much a concern, at least for my students at SMU. That was lesson number one. Lesson number two, deference to your colleagues. Going online and correcting somebody else's mistake, and in particular, in a wiki format where that correction is documented. Every single change is listed, and they know that the prof is going to, every couple of days, go in and see every single change that is made in that wiki, causing your teammate, who is later on going to have at least a small voice in your final grade for team participation, causing that person to lose face in front of prof because a mistake was corrected. This, oh my. Michael comes to Asia and finally learns something. This was a big, big mistake. So, and I thank the students who were willing to speak to the Chronicle of Higher Education and the New York Times and share this sort of insight with me. And this was, I think, for me, some of the biggest takeaways in what at that point had been about a 6 or 6.5 year journey with the class. Now this brings me to lesson number two, which is going to be more performance-based. Not only was I making assumptions about culture and what we would be willing to do, but I also made assumptions about performance. And here, for me, I think back to my own life. What have I ever learned that was worth keeping that didn't involve doing something and, quite honestly, making a mistake? And I like to joke to my wife, my list of mistakes is long and distinguished. So I'm a good husband to have. I know what to do now. But think about it, mathematics. I had to make the mistakes to learn it. Physical fitness, I'm learning from my mistakes right now. Middle-aged man exercises. Flexor pain, stretching before you exercise. Not an issue when you're 16, it is an issue at 47. So, but these are things I've learned by doing. Now, the same thing made perfect sense to me when I started the class. I said, I want the students to go onto the networks. I want them to learn by doing. And it's okay to make a mistake if in your learning journal you'll go, Oops, not doing that again. The lesson gets through, right? Well, again, well-intentioned, but maybe not the best thinking. This is an example of one of the things that I had the students do. They would create an infographic. Now, infographics a few years back became very popular. Everybody wants to share them. So this particular team did this infographic on emerging social media in Indonesia. They distributed this infographic over public channels. They got an amazing response from the community. And a couple of the students even got job offers based upon this infographic. PR firms are saying, hey, you know how to do that? We have clients who want this. Come work for us. Well, again, well-intentioned, but doesn't always turn out the way that we want. What I learned was that the success that these students have did not equalize the discomfort that they had by having to perform in a public network. That discomfort outweighed even the job offers that they received. You know, what a great story to be able to say, I produced this infographic and we got 2 job offers. The discomfort absolutely dominated everything. So again, that even though that performance ultimately was successful in this case, students did not like it. And again, the data transparency that I mentioned earlier, they didn't like that either because they said, you know what, I'm going to have you go look up information on mobile penetration. And you go look up government statistics on internet penetration. And you go look up 3 case studies that Prof wants that illustrate what we're learning. And you go do a couple of interviews because you're the most extroverted person on our team. And they would divide and conquer. But that data transparency that social media gives us says, I'm sorry, you only did mobile data. What did you learn about the internet? What did you learn about the case studies? And they're sitting there going, they had no idea that I would be doing this. And again, they learned the hard way. Now, my thinking is, that's good. Until class evaluations came out. Okay, this was not good. It was not the way that they liked to learn. All right, so the way in which we ask them to perform these acts in a network is going to matter. How is it that I can encourage them or get them to do the things that I know that they need to do? Giving them an assignment, saying go online, and even creating the private space to practice and then go online, performing in this manner just did not resonate well. I needed to find a better way of getting students into these networks and enjoying what they were doing. Which brings me to the last point, motivation. Now, gamification is perhaps one simple example of how I have started to think about approaching these exercises in the online world. What is it about a game that makes it fun? All right? Well, let's compare a game, and this goes to Jane McGonigal. If you've seen her TED Talk, it's fantastic. If you've not seen it, definitely look Jane up and talk about how she's trying to change the world with games. Very, very inspiring stuff. But she says, look, if we look at real life, and I see this all the time when I'm consulting with businesses, purposes are unclear. Yeah, the CEO knows what the strategy is, but nobody else in the organization does. So we have unclear purpose. There's little motivation to work on something that you don't understand. My goals, my key performance indicators are often not clear. Feedback often comes once a year or when the boss yells at me, and I feel like I have a lack of control. Now, this list does not describe a game. This list describes the real world that many of us live in to a greater or lesser extent. So a good game, of course, is going to give us the opposite. So as an example, think about your Nike Fuel Band. Have you seen one of these? All right, I can push on this Nike Fuel band, and I can already see how many fuel points I have earned for today, 582. I have a long way to go before I reach 3,500 today. Again, this is the middle-aged man exercising thing. But it gives me motivation, all right? And I have data that comes in. Hey, somebody's happy to see me again, even if it's not my students. Somebody is. I can see how many points I've got. I can see my accomplishments. I can set targets for myself. And now I've got purpose. I've got measurement. I've got immediate feedback. I have friends to play this game with. I'm already about 26 kilometers behind my closest friend this month. I've got some real running to do if I'm going to catch up to him by the end of the month. But I have all of these things that make a system work, and it's very, very motivational. So, number one, I'm doing this voluntarily, unlike forcing your students to go and do something they're reluctant to do. The goals are achievable. I thank Edelman PR for this. They have volunteered to my class a belt system for social media, and now, rather than having a 3.5-hour baptism by fire on social media, they earn their yellow belt, then they earn their green belt, then they earn their blue belt, whatever the order is. And they go through this in achievable sequences. Edelman taught me this. Voluntary obstacles. I now give them more choices and say, you can have 3 low hurdles over here, you can have 1 high hurdle over here, you can have a high jump over there. Choose what you want. And they do, and this is the path that they go down. Feedback systems, I now do this religiously, going back to what you were saying at the beginning, being responsive. In a social media world, feedback going into the midterm break, you've missed the mark by miles. Okay, they want feedback in real time. And of course, the networks. These are things that they can go through with their friends. They see when their friends earn their yellow belt or their blue belt. They see when their friends successfully get their first online interview. All of this is sort of a system of feedback that keeps everybody going. So framing my course as a game has been, I think, a very, very productive way of thinking about it. So those are just 3 ideas from my experience since 2006 teaching this course. We've got to think about the motivation system. Yes, grades are important, but that social, those unwritten rules in the classroom are far more important. And if everybody is saying, we don't want to go online, no grade, no firmness is going to reverse that. You've got to think about making it fun so that afterwards they go, hey, that was actually cool. Glad that I did that. Okay? And as I think about it, perhaps students are already giving us clues as to what is fun and engaging and good. I just look at how many hours a week my daughter at least tries to play Minecraft. And the ways in which she connects with her students, her classmates in there. Maybe they're already pointing the way for us, and we just need to start learning from them. Maybe not such a bad idea. So for me, if I summarize that, I would say it's the experience. I created an experience that made perfect sense for me. They hated it. Experiences that are now more gamified, they seem to be responding a lot better, and it's more uncomfortable for me. But then again, I guess that's why I'm in education. I still enjoy learning, so it is a good experience for me as well. And that, my friends, I think probably brings us up to about our time limit. So thank you.